Alright mates, welcome back to the channel. Hope everybody's doing well. JL Scott Fishing here, and I've gotten a lot of questions. A lot of people know now that summer is over, and now we are officially in fall. Though we've been going through this transition, what's called the fall transition. You'll see tons of videos will be landing on YouTube and other platforms that will be fall transition. It's kind of like the catchphrase, right? For this time of year, though every fishery is different, and the way that those fish will be reacting is going to be very unique to your fishery, depending on water levels, depending on water clarity and water temperature. So all of that is predicated upon really where you are at right now, as this video drops, in terms of what you're seeing in your river, lake, impoundment, reservoir, and the like, and depending on whether you're experiencing. For me, where I am, we just got some rain move through overnight into the morning. It's probably been the first time really that we haven't had basically blue skies in like 5 days, and 80-degree temps. So, you know, we're starting to see it, and we'll see what happens with the river, depending on how much rain drops above that will impact our river systems in the next few days, going into the last week of September. We're going to talk about baits specifically here, and I'm going to concentrate on cranks, okay? Now, obviously, there are a variety of baits for the fall transition. I prefer spinner baits during this time frame. You guys know I pretty much throw a jig year-round, but a lot of times I use the jig. Well, let me back up. I'll use the spinner bait and the crankbait and crankbait variations as the setup for the jig. Okay, I usually will not start throwing the jig right off the ramp, right at the get-go. That's usually not this time of year. What I will do, I will move to that late fall to early winter, where I will just take the jigs with me. But in terms of the fall transition, you know, typically a typical day, I will start with spinner baits, or any other kind of top water, depending on what I'm seeing with the water. But I typically will start with a spinner bait for smallies, and as well as in my impoundment or reservoir. All these crankbaits I'm going to show you today are crankbaits that I have either I've had success on, both river or impoundment. I try, what I do with the custom crankbaits is I always try to get a balanced approach in terms of, okay, where will clients and where will people that I recommend, custom bait makers, their designs for fish to increase catch rates. I want all the custom baits that I put people on to be catch ready. Okay? Meaning proven, they will catch you fish, and then after that go into, you know, with clients and with other individuals, you know, techniques using the actual bait that will increase your catch rates. But in any of my videos, all the videos that I focus on, all the custom baits that I focus on, you know, I want them to be proven baits on the water, you know, and be able to talk about my experience with them, how fish related to that bait, you know, sizes, you know, all these different things relating to the patterns, forage series patterns, action, vibration, your size, your bill, your depth, all of those things, you know, come into play here when we're talking about crankbaits. So what about the fall, or the fall transition, should lead you to reaching for your crankbaits? Now, a lot of mates will use crankbaits as search baits as well, but the reality of it is during this transition phase, bass can be anywhere, right? I mean, you will catch them anywhere. It's almost like that weird, they don't know kind of what's going on. You've got that change, you've got the shorter day, they know that, they know the lunar change, you know, in terms of that, they know the temperature change in the water, all of those things. So they're experiencing all of that, right? And so you've got some fish that are out deep and some fish that are already in the back of creeks, right? And then you have those fish that are transitioning between the two, right? And it's that group of fish where the crankbait becomes even more effective. You certainly can throw it in the backs, technically in the backs of creeks. And what do we experience in the backs of creeks, mates? We usually experience laydowns. We usually experience remaining grass, right? We usually experience a lot of these things, structure, docks, all of that stuff we tend to find in coves and in creeks, right? But you're not finding offshore, right? You're not finding in the deeper water, okay? So one simple pattern technique. This is something that I employ on an impoundment we have here in Western Maryland called Little Seneca Lake. Some people call it Black Hills because the Black Hills Regional Park is adjacent to the water, but the water is actually Little Seneca Lake. Okay, and it's actually going to be a site for the Maryland State Championship for the kayak division coming up, I believe, in October. And so this is how I like to approach an impoundment. It's a lot different than the river. Okay, I predominantly river fish, you guys know that. But when I approach an impoundment this time of year, I'm going to start from the outside in. What does that mean? It's very similar to when you're fishing on a tidal fishery, right? When you want to start on the outside grass lines and then work your way in as the tide, right? With the tide, right? Very similar approach. Because it's September, okay? What are we in the 21st, 22nd, something like that? And you still have grass. Some of the grass is dying, okay? So when you're looking at that feeling, you want to gravitate to green grass, the brightest green grass you can find, okay? Doesn't matter if it's back in a creek, doesn't matter if it's your underwater grass lines. You want to find that. You don't want to waste your time during the fall transition on burnt grass, dead grass, top of the waterline grass that's brown. Why? Because you're really not looking for grass. You're really not looking for current, okay? And that is predominantly what you're always going to hear, okay? Look for current for smallies. Look for grass for largemouth bass. And that's true. But what you're really looking for is the maximum amount of oxygen that's in the water column present at any given time. If you locate where the oxygen is in a high ratio density to the other parts of the lake, you are going to catch fish. People say I'm looking for structure, right? Now, how do you gauge that? Because, well, that's what the graphs are set up for. The graphs are there to provide you and me, a not bird's eye view of the bottom of lakes, right? And where things are, right? Okay? That's what they're set up to do. That's what they're marketed to do. But do they show you oxygen levels? Do they really, really show you those things? Now, some obviously are a lot more advanced than others, okay, in terms of everything that they provide. Live scope, all this stuff, locating a thermocline, all that stuff, okay? You basically get a water temperature on most of them, even your baseline, okay, which is important. But you really want to find oxygen. That's what you want to find. When you find that bright green grass, you're going to find higher levels of oxygen, okay? You're also going to find bait fish, forage, everything for these fish, okay? And as they transition in, they will stage or suspend at each where there is local forage, grass, higher rates of oxygen for them as they make their way through their pattern sequence of however they may do that. And so that's what's important. So I start from the outside in, which means I'm usually starting, depending on your lake or impoundment, a lot of lakes will be 7 feet to 25 feet, okay? So for me, I'm having it, okay? Now you've got other deeper bodies of water in our region like Lake Anna, Smith Mountain Lake, Jackson Randolph. You've got all the reservoirs that are deep, okay? You've got to just kind of pick your poison here. I usually like to start at like 20 feet on the deepers and, 12 to 14 feet on the others and work my way back up into the creek. Now, I see all too often so many guys start at the back of a creek and work their way out. That's never really, unless you're on an early morning topwater frog bite, or something like that, where it's very targeted. That works for me, but that other pattern throughout the day, it works for me to go outside in. And what I mean by that is starting with crankbaits that are divers at this time of the year, okay? This mimics the perch. This has been a great bait on lakes and impoundments, okay? This is a diver, okay? It mimics your yellow perch or any kind of perch type forage. And then this one is your pumpkin seed, right? Mimics all of that different forage species, small sunfish type species, okay? And you work these in the deep as you start from the outside in, okay? Now, as I move from the outside in, okay, in that progression, as I get shallower or come across grass, still green grass, even though it's fall transition, okay? And I know a lot of people are going to say it's a spring bait. Wrong. It is a fall transition bait. And that is your lipless crankbait. Okay? This one mimics a bluegill. This has been one of the best baits this year. This one limits your crappie that you're going to find, okay, in your lakes and impoundments. Most of them, okay? You're going to find this in various population levels, okay? The bass will feed on these all the way in through the transition. Find that grass, work that grass line. Again, the same way you would in the spring when a lot of people are throwing lipless. Notice so far, we're only talking about forage specific to impoundments, which you're not seeing any crawl patterns, right? Now, I know a lot of people always talk about me. I'm always talking about crawl patterns. I'm always painting crawl patterns. I'm always sending out crawl patterns to people. And that's mostly for those that river bassing, okay? Where crawl's a lot more prevalent. Now, in your impoundments, you want to switch up to your predominant forage species, which tend to be your minnows, shad style minnow forage, sunfish forage, like this. And so that's a difference from the the rivers. Now, again, perfect for this type of your experimentation, okay, is, well, Jay, I caught a couple fish on my diver, okay, and then that bite died up, and now I'm moving in to, from 12 to 14 feet of water to 8 to 10 feet of water. This isn't really going to work for me anymore. You're right. That's when you can switch up to the same exact pattern, throwing your lipless crankbait. Same exact pattern. You know that they've been hammering this particular pattern at this particular water level, okay? And then that bite died off, okay? And you're moving closer back towards the creeks, moving your way back in a cove or from deeper water to shallow water. That's when I go with this, okay? So you can hatch appropriately at different water depths and different actions. This may have a thump. This has more of a rattle and a thump, okay? These things all work to your advantage, all right? Now, you've gone diver. You've gone to your lipless crankbait. As you work your way into lower, for me, as I get to 6 feet or less, okay, I will go square bill. That's where I'm going, okay? And in this particular situation, the impoundments, Little Seneca Lake, unfortunately for me, my catches in the last few weeks are out of bounds, not eligible for the event that I'm in right now. I have to apologize to my teammate because I caught some good fish, but they're not scoreable because that event is Virginia water or Potomac only, not Maryland reservoirs. Not Maryland water is out of bounds unless it's the tidal Potomac or the upper Potomac. It shares Virginia and Maryland boundaries. So I got some work I got to do before the end of the month. For sure, down in Virginia and on the in the tidal Potomac, for sure. And so I'll put a lot of these to same use in the Potomac because they will work as well because you have shad, you have your river herring, you have all that forage. Plus you also have some crawl and you've got some blue crab and all that still in the tidal. So it'll still work effectively. It just has to be tweaked differently. But the lipless crankbait is still working at a mate. Catch a 4.2 pounder tidal Potomac on Tuesday. off one of the Lipless crankbaits. So the Lipless are still going to work for you. Okay, tidal or impoundment. It's just the action. It's an easy meal, that kind of stuff. So when I'm in that 6 feet water or less, I'm going to go into square bills. Okay, and I have a few square bills here. I want to show you that that are unbelievable custom square bills. Okay, and I can't encourage this enough. Reach out to me. I can put you in. I'll put you in contact with not only myself, obviously, but also some other custom bait makers producing some incredible crankbaits now. Unbelievable. Especially if you want to avoid, if you're interested in patterns and things of a lot of higher priced things. You're going to see what I'm talking about in a second. This is an opportunity, okay? Even for those on a budget now, for sure. So, all right, 6 feet or less, go to a square bill, okay? I've talked about this bait a while. This is kind of my go-to river square bill. It matches a shiner pattern, shad pattern, but I like the colors on it because it really mimics the shiners, the golden shiners in the Susquehanna, but also the shiner daughters that you can find in the upper Potomac. Also works on your impoundments as well, and you can hear that knock and rattle. This is just an awesome bait to have in your arsenal. Okay, all right, same size here. Okay, bait fish fall tend to be smaller. Okay, so understand that. All right, you don't want to go any bigger than these ones that I'm showing you right now, unless you're in further out, deep water, 25 feet or more, and you're throwing baits mimicking some bait balls and all that stuff that could still happen. Places like Lake Anna, Smith Mountain Lake, bigger bodies of water. Really prefer this size. So you've got that pattern right here. You've got another blue. Okay. Colors on this are absolutely phenomenal. This bait right here isn't reminiscent of, you could say shad, you could say river herring, blueback herring. Probably the video's not probably doing this justice. I'll post some more videos on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts on my channel. You can check that out here. Okay, so this, you've got this size, right? And again, just like that pumpkin seam pattern, what do we like to do? Okay, we like to be able to have our baits at various different presentation levels. Okay, that's what's going to make you successful. I mean, they were biting my bait in 10, 20 feet of water, and then what do you think? The fish aren't going to, that the shad or the forage itself isn't going through a transition phase? It too isn't moving shallow? Of course it is. So you can check this one out. A little bit deeper water, obviously, a little bit bigger profile, square bill. What's this look like? Looks a lot like a mega bass, doesn't it? Okay? That looks exactly like that S crank for mega bass. And it's a custom bait. Okay? Beautiful color lines. Two sizes, cover two different depths of water. Throwing on laydowns, fallen wood, back of creeks, any of that stuff. Different, tighter wobble. These have different wobbles. Thump, more of a rattle and a thump, and the waddles are going to be a little bit different in terms of the wiggle, right? So that's highly effective, all right? So there's your herring, blueback, tight, okay? If you want to go with something that's got, you've seen that in the bait fish, right? Something with a little subtle chartreuse, subtle, okay? Look at that shine right there. It's got that chartreuse line. Blue, pink kind of rose color, right? And then you've got the S crank, okay? A lot bigger, a little bigger profile, same as we talked about before. Kind of get you that in your impoundment, reservoir, awesome colorations here, like we talked about before. Okay, now the last two, okay, are that, okay, I want to go with a little bit of pop. I want to go with some clear water, okay? I want to go with that. That's what I'm looking for, like something that's kind of bright. We did that with our spinner baits, right? Our bright chartreuse, our white, our chartreuse colors. You want to get out there and bright. Obviously, in the impoundments, the water's clear. Now, if the impoundment is stained and muddied up, you got to change those colors and change your blades, change where they go from silver or gold and all that stuff. It works the same way with your cranks, okay? I didn't pull out today my black and blue crank from Willamette Weapons, which is an awesome crankbait pattern. Same size roughly as this. It is in black and blue. It's basically a black and blue crawl, but you can get away with it on your impoundment that doesn't have any crawl because of that action and that color. But if you want the pop and brightness of the sunfish and of the forage that your lake probably has that are also moving to docks, remember, your bluegill, your sunfish, crappie to a certain extent, they will gravitate to docks during this transition time in their moving shallow. So that's when you want to pop out with a little bit more pop, okay? Got emerald color, green, yellow, gold. Got that pinky on the bottom, okay, for a track. And then again, larger size, okay? Follow that pattern, mates, with your crankbaits, all right? Start out from the outside, deeper divers, moving into your lipless, moving into your crankbait square bill as you work your way into the shallower portions of your creeks and coves that are going to have laydowns and structure and things like that you can work your crankbaits at. All right, mates.